Good morning, swim bait addicts on AZ Swim Baiters. Now, we're going to preface this particular video by saying that I am a multiple technique fisherman. That does not mean that I am adverse to doing swim baits only. In fact, I have a really high affection for swim baits. I love the way that they work. They just have this drawing power on bass that you really don't get with any other bait. But I also go multi-species. So I have conundrums going on because I don't have the income normally to get just one series of technique in baits built up. So over the past year and a half or so, since I started my friendship and association with Michael Harriman with Juggernaut Custom Jigs, who, by the way, makes some pretty big striper jigs, and he's getting into bigger on that level. I built up a lot of everything from real tiny micro bluegill panfish style all the way up through a couple of the striper ones, and that's kind of where my focus was. Well, now I'm built up like there's no tomorrow. I'm a pro staffer on his. He's got like 6 or 7 people. He sends me stuff all the time to test out, but that's on that side of technique. I'm coming to the swim bait side, and most of the stuff I dabbled in was no more than 7 inches. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I want to go bigger. So I had for almost a year a Lexa WN 400H high gear, 6:3-1, and it had the big wind gripped handles. Great reel, fantastic reel. And I didn't have a rod for it, and I was spending money on other things and paying bills. So fast forward, I finally got the money after tax returns to go ahead and get a rod. And I had been asking for advice on which one to get between the 867 and 908 from Dobyns. And general consensus was that most of what I would throw could be done on an 867, but I really wanted to get into the magnum size baits. So a little bit further down the road, a couple weeks, I ordered a 908 off eBay because a couple of pro staffers that I talked to didn't have, or former pro staffers didn't have connections anymore, and that was fine with me. I paid, I think it was like $2.89 shipped, and they shipped it in a badass tube. Didn't wrap it as well as I would like, but they got it to me intact. And I threw it at Desert Breeze. Great rod, heavy outfit actually. It's pretty heavy in the hand. I'm so used to ultralight that getting back used to swim bait equipment is kind of interesting to me, because the one I had before was a lighter swim bait rod and a 711, not a damn near 9-foot rod. So it's taking some getting used to. But got to fish the Colorado River and the 3 reservoirs that are contained in that chain. Now, we didn't go to Mitri, which is below the dam, but it was an interesting experience. We did not catch anything. We had several hits, but they were really like pre-spawny, light, tail bitey, just, you know, funky bites, and we just couldn't get a hookup. And apparently we weren't unique in that yesterday. There was only one guy that we talked to. Him and his partner had gotten 4 or 5, anywhere from 2.5 to up to 5 pounds. And they were literally taking Texas rig watermelon seed in the toolies, coming out a couple feet and getting smacked. So it was a very long process for them, but they had spot lock. Well, guess what? My friend's boat ain't got spot lock. Just no. It's got a Minn Kota edge, 70 thrust, and it on 5 we were battling the current. So between the current and the wind, which was substantial, it was almost impossible for him to control the boat. I've got to commend my friend Jim. He did everything possible to try to keep us in position to make good casts. But between that and the bimini top being up, which was 6 inches shorter than it really should be, it was problematic unless I was standing right on the very rear of the deck. Now, it's a fairly floaty boat, but it is a 17-foot Alumacraft aluminum flat bottom. So, it's not the most stable boat in the world. 278 pounds on the absolute rear of a deck with a swimbait rod is not fun. I did it, though. So, I basically just planted my feet wider my shoulders and did as good as I could. We got a lot of follows. I used some underspins on top of using my swim bait rod, but my primary focus was trying that out to get into a striper. I've had a striper before in the past, but I've not done a lot of that type of fishing, and they can get big in that river system. So I said, okay, I'm focusing on this. So most of what I threw was my bull shad, which is the 7-inch actually, and I actually etched these out deeper and put nail polish and just some clear coat on them. It looks janky if you look at it real close, like it's really like not a custom paint job in any way, shape, or form, but it gets attention, and I've gotten a lot of pretty solid fish on this actual bait, and I've never lost it. The regular cinch knot that I use works pretty good for me actually. But these things, these buka shads, these bull shads, they just have this thing with their movement. I mean, to me, when I look at it straight on with these gaps, it looks like crap. But man, when it moves in the water, it's so realistic, it's not even funny. And it's not an expensive bait, especially if you go on eBay and find them. People just buy them just to sell them. So I tried one of these, a 5-inch, I believe, with a ducket version. Which, you know, I am not knocking Boyd Duckett. Trust me, I love his rods. I've had a couple of them. But his shad sucks. It's nowhere near as good as, I mean, it's prettier, granted. It doesn't work as well. So I'm throwing this bull shad. I'm throwing it along the tulies. And I got some follows, but I didn't get any committers. Even when I stopped and made that infamous turn for that flight or fright thing from the bass, it didn't elicit a strike. I got one huge ass strike out in the middle of nowhere. I was not getting anything out of the tule, so I said F it, and I threw right in the middle of the fucking river. And I got one strike, and it hit at the head. And if you've thrown swim baits of any kind long enough, you can tell the difference between a side, a back, or a front hit. You just tell by the way they hit. But it wasn't a bass. It was not a bass. It could have been a striper. It could have been a flatty. Plenty of flatheads have hit glide and soft swim baits. So my friend has a tendency to think that it was a flathead. I tend to think it was a striper. Personally, I do. Now, the one thing that got me the absolute biggest follow, and it was a striper, there was no mistaking it, that shadow was way too big for a bass, was this, which is the Sexy Shad color. This is the Mega Dog from Strike King. And I've never used any of Strike King's topwaters before. I've used their square bills. I've thrown a 10XD. I kind of classify these type waters as a type of swim bait because walking the dog is a motion like that. I know people use the lunker plunkers, so I kind of classify that in this category. I have cats all around me. So anyway, I was just slow popping it and just getting it to just pop to the side, and I saw just this stupid huge shadow. Oh, it was freaking massive. I don't know how big that fish was, but it was not a polite size. I knew that if I got hit, it was going to be a battle, regardless of the rod. So I was prepared for it. I was just getting ready. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. But it never happened because I did that pop, that last pop where we were walking the dog, he hit it and it turns to the side just like any other swim bait. And it just turned. I was like, man, I really wish that thing had committed. Because I have not caught a solid striper in a long time. It's been a long time since I've been and gone for one. So it was kind of unfortunate, but there was a lot of good learning experience with that rod, though. The one thing I wanted to throw on that rod, which I didn't, and I don't know if I really classify it so much as a swim bait. It's still top water, but it doesn't walk. This damn thing right here. This is, I still got the box. It's from Halco. It's a Roosta Popper Haymaker 195. It's ugly. The paint is stupid flashy. It's got these fantastically unrealistic eyes. And it's absolutely stupid huge mouth. This thing is made for like shit off of a reef. It's not made for regular bass fishing. But I actually saw somebody on El Salto when I went down there in 2016 use one of these exclusively. It had several different colors, but this was what he used. He didn't use any power worms. He didn't use any diving baits, nothing. All he used was the Rooster Poppers. And he was getting some huge bass on this. So I kind of wanted to throw it. I was a little bit afraid to, really, because moving that walk the dog bait, it was kind of interesting to try to move on such a heavy rod. I didn't really quite get that popping motion down. I would have been all right on like a standard medium heavy cranking stick like I had before, but not on that. But I could imagine that for striper, this would kick some butt in the morning, and it's actually something I'm going to try on Pleasant at some point in time. I mean, it's hardcore. It's even got freaking galvanized steel hooks, not even regular stainless. It's crazy. And it was only like 14 bucks. This was only 12. I mean, you can't fault the logic behind the money involved, you know. But I need to get bigger classification baits for this 908 setup I have. I'm not going to have another lighter swim bait rod for a while. Just because I'm tapped out and I need to get some baits for the 908. So the first one I think I'm going to get is the iSlide 262. It's a fairly solid design. The replacement tails are fairly inexpensive. Something that I can handle, like on my next check, I can still pay my bills and get it. I don't make a lot of money, so I have to kind of work with what I've got, which, you know, anybody that's on a budget, that's just the way it is. But I put out on Swimbait Underground that I was looking for anything basically unwanted, unused in the glide bait category, or in need of repair and somebody just not wanting to take the time to repair it. I have a friend that does painting. She's really talented at it. She's got great technique in refurbishing things. So I think that you know, replacing split rings and trebles and repainting and stuff like that, I'd be perfectly willing to do that to save some money. I really think that would be a way to go for me. So to that end, you know, if anybody has something in the classification that a 908 would typically throw, keeping in mind that it goes from 8 ounces to 30 on the rod, realistically 24 is probably where I'm going to max. I don't really want to throw anything really bigger than that. I mean, a Roman-made mother is 16 ounces and 13 inches, and it's a pretty big beast. So, you know, somewhere in that range. If you have anything like that you don't want or just don't want to repair, I'd certainly entertain the idea of taking it off your hands, as long as I could pay a fair amount and not, you know, rape my wallet, so to speak. So, I love the rod, though. It's got a great action. It casts great. I put that 25-pound Izor X line on it. It casts really easy. It really phenomenal casting line for as inexpensive as it is anyway. I mean, I'm not going to go super stupid high-end because I change my line regardless of my outfit. It doesn't matter if it's my 2-pound line, ultralight panfish, my medium ultralight 4-pound line, my 6-pound drop shot, or my heavier stuff. I change my line at least once a month, if not twice a month, depending on how much I'm fishing, because I fish a lot. But I'm going to be concentrating a lot the next few months on just swim bait, strictly. So I have to change it out regularly, and I'm not going to go spend a butt ton of money. I mean, you know, this, what is it, 530 yard spool, 25-pound Azor line, it was $18 shipped on eBay. I mean, I can't fault that. I didn't have $180 for a 3,000-foot spool. I would have done it if I had. So there's just things that I'm working on and falling in line with. So if you do have baits that you don't want or that need repair and you're willing to get rid of them and they're in that size range that a 908 would throw, I will completely entertain that. I actually had to turn a guy down on the underground because he was offering me Savage Gears line through 12-inch and 8-inch trout, and I was going to do messenger pay on Facebook, and he said PayPal only. I can't do that. I have to do messenger pay or chase pay. So that's just the way it is, or cash in hand, you know, perhaps. So I'm going to see how things go. If I catch fish, maybe I'll post pics. We'll see what happens.